Namaste and good morning, everyone. Let's start our Saturday class with some prayers. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhurbhavaswaha, Tatsavitra Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Diyo Yo Naha प्रचोदयात् अस्तो मा सद्गम्य तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गम्य मृत्युर्मा अमृतं गम्य ओम सहनावतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सवीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ओम शांति शांति शांति. So we are on the third chapter, Vibhuti Pad. And as you know, Vibhuti means the powers. Whenever we do some kind of a sadhana, some practice, of course the powers will come. So these are the powers he is mentioning. Sometimes we need to, if you need the power for the betterment of the society, we try to cultivate these powers. Or sometimes these powers come automatically also. But either way, we should not boast about them. We should not show off. We should remember what a yogi's ultimate goal is, not to attain the powers, but to attain the ultimate freedom. Remember that. So we are just going through these powers which may come or which we might need to cultivate to help the society sometimes. Maybe we are in a position where we need these. And he says through Samyama. And as we know, Sanyam means concentration, meditation, and super absorption into that particular object. That becomes a Sanyam. So that's how you really get to know what this nature is all about. So we ended our last week class with verse number 24. Where he is telling us the powers of friendliness, etc., can be cultivated by Sanyama. So Maitri Adishu Balane. So Maitri means the friendliness, but then he means the other three also. And I told you to go back into the first chapter and look the other powers also. They are powers. To be a friend is a power. To have compassion for somebody hurting and having a compassion, that's a power. To be happy when some good things are happening, that's a power. And to be non-judgmental, that's a power too. And opposite of all this, they are vices. When we judge somebody, that's a vice. When we try to hurt somebody, that's a vice. When we feel jealous, that's a vice. So we got to cultivate virtues if we want to become one with God. Because what is God? God is epitome of virtues. So we got to cultivate the virtues. Now in the next verse, Rishi Patanjali is talking about the physical strength also. Sometimes you need physical strength. He says, baleshu, hasti, bal, adini. Baleshu means that bal, the power, physical power. So by Sanyam on the powers, baleshu. Hasti means elephant. Bal is strength, adini, etc. So by Sanyam on the strength of an elephant, etc., the corresponding strength is developed. One can make anything, a person, an animal, or an event, the object of his Sanyam. When strong animals, like the elephant, I mean, we hear about elephants, read about elephants, the tall, strong, live tree, just with their trunk, they can put it down. Lions, tigers, When we make them the object for practicing Sanyam, the strength of that animal can be acquired. So whenever the Adi word, Adi means etc. over here. So elephant, etc. So the strength of these animals is to be meditated upon while doing Sanyam, then the same strength can be developed in the student of yoga. If he does Sanyam on the mental alertness of a tiger, because tigers are very alert, can develop that mental alertness in himself. Or if a Sanyam is practiced on the agility of a tiger, that agility can be developed by a yogi in himself. So the presence of these capacities is known by the influence, the powers hidden in the substratum. So remember this Sanyam, concentration, meditation, and samadhi on a power in isolation from the substratum. And what is a substratum? Substratum is the energy, the Atma, the God. Sometimes it's very difficult to do it. But if you want to cultivate the power, you got to do the Sanyam on the power alone. This really takes us to a very central doctrine of the sadhana, which is called a practices of Shakti, the power. The Shaktiman, the locus of the power. So it's like a keep the distinction over there, because normally it's one and the same. By meditating on Shakti, we automatically meditate on Shaktiman eventually. But first, it becomes a Sanyam only when we are totally focused on the Shakti. So achieving the strength of an elephant by practicing Sanyam and power is just merely an example he is giving. Rishi Patanjali is not really recommending that we actually meditate on the strength of the elephant. Okay, as a yoga students, right now we live in the cities, we live in our homes. We don't need to do that. Sure, in the jungles when the yogis lived, they needed that. Okay, so remember at what time these scriptures were written, but the essence stays the same. Even now, the Sanyam on a power will make you powerful. The divinities are non-human entities. They are almost like intangible powers they embody. To bring them into our awareness and enable the mind to perceive them and as an object of a Sanyam, you got to do the meditation with the help of the mantra also. That's why there are a lot of mantras too. With the help of the mantra, we focus. And then in the next verse, there is something different he's telling us, but still it is the power. Pravritti alok nyasat sookshmavyavahita viprakrishtajnanam. This is a little longer sutra. Pravritti, super physical faculty. Pravritti. Alok, light. Nyasat, by projecting. Suksham, subtle, fine. Vyavahit, hidden. Viprakrishtaha, distant. Jnanam, knowledge. So hidden knowledge is talking about the knowledge of subtle, obscure, or distant objects is gained by dilating the light of the super physical faculty. Pravrittyalokanyasat. If you remember in the first chapter, verse number 36, there was a term we learned, Vishok. That is like a faculty which is called Vishok can be developed in the mind. So the mind can also develop a superphysical faculty, which is called a Jyotishmati Pravritti. Which is called a Jyotishmati means illuminating. Illuminating faculty can be cultivated. So in this sutra, the word Pravritti is used to indicate that faculty. So this Pravritti is a Jyotishmati Pravritti. So by developing this illuminating faculty in the mind, which is capable of penetrating anywhere, the yogi can see hidden, obscure, or distant objects. Normally, we like to see things, find things with our eyes. We want to look for it. But sometimes we use our hands also to move the things around so that we can find whatever we are looking for. But over here, he is telling us that light of the mind can be developed. Sitting over here, we can find something which is far away. That's how the yogis knew exactly how far the sun is, or the stars are, or the galaxies, the entire cosmos. How big, how vast, how beautiful. Not only outside, the inside also, inside the human body. That's how they could tell. The God is everywhere in everybody. That is a Jyotish Mati Pravritti. Normally, we see things with the colored eyes. And our eyes could be colored, and eyes are the mental eyes also. They can be very tamasic, very dark. What do we see? Only darkness. Or it could be rajasic, full of greed, full of anxiety, full of stress. Or it could be sattvic, which is pure. But over here, he is taking us even beyond sattvikta. Just Jyotish Mati Pravritti is beyond that. When the illuminating faculty is directed towards a person or an object which is missing, it can immediately be known where that person or thing is. This morning I was reading the Ramayana, which is written by my Guruji. Many episodes in there where a king needed to find something, and it was a yogi king could find it. Not to show off, but to protect the general public. Or there was a queen. Somebody kidnapped the king. Sitting in her palace, she could find where my husband is, where the king of this kingdom is. These are the powers. So treasures which are buried underground or objects which are very distant can be directly observed by this power. Even subtle things like atoms or individual cells in the body can be observed. There are two methods of practicing this. One is a Vedic method, the other is a yogic method. The Vedic method, normally we don't discuss because it's absolutely ritualistic method. Since this is a yogic scripture, we talk more about the yoga. So a person should practice and develop these super physical faculties, which is a Jyotishmati Pravritti. So with the rituals, with the memorization of the mantras, with the very severe austerities, sure powers can come. But over here, this is little different. Jyotish Vikti Pravritti. So it's almost like you can say cognition which has luminosity, which is beyond the domain of the senses. That's why we call it an extraordinary cognition or extrasensory cognition, which emerges when the mind has already transcended the afflicting sanskars. So that means you have risen above all those afflictions, which we learned before. Avidya, asmita, rag, dvesh, abhinivesh. If we are already ignorant, or we are arrogant, or we are attached to this physical body and the physical world, then these powers won't come. So you got to rise above it. Those are very preliminary practices we need to do. Get rid of those afflictions. So the practices leading to this state of experience are called Vishok or Jyotishmati. So more established we are in the state of Vishok or Jyotishmati, the more clear, perceptive and concentrating and penetrating the mind will be. Because the tool is the mind over here. Over here, for these powers, tools are not the senses. Because normally we use the tools which are very gross. Not only our senses, we try to use the tools which are very gross tools these days. The physical tools. But over here, he's talking about very subtle. Subtler than the senses, the mind. He says, work on that. Jyotishmati is a state of experiencing our own inner luminosity. And another term we learned in relationship to this is Buddhi Sattva. Few months ago, the essence of the self-revealing power of our faculty of discernment, Buddhi Sattva. Okay, discernment is the vivek, to know what is true, what is false, what is temporary, what is permanent. Who we are in reality. Or we learned the word pragya shakti. So these are just different terms used by different rishis, but it's the same thing. Even though this shakti, the power is always there. It is with all of us actually, because we are all part of God, but we are not in touch with it. It will manifest and it will be at our disposal to be used if we do sadhana. That's what he's telling us. So we got to follow these principles properly. Sometimes these practices are done intentional. So when we do it intentionally, we very precisely deploy the light of Jyotishmati so that we can comprehend the object. We need to find something. And the term for this practice, precisely when we do it, intentionally when we do it, this is called the niyas. This is a technical word. See, niyas. See, you remember in this one? When he says, pravrittyalokanyasat. So nyasat means by projecting. So that is a practice. So precise deployment of the inner light is called niyas. So another way you can understand niyas is bringing awareness to an identifiable spot and then anchoring it there. Okay, so that's why I said it's a precise and very intentional practice. You know what you are doing and why you are doing it. Some people, some rishis in their writings, they have called it a pravrittyalokanyasat. So which involves directing and anchoring the light born of extraordinary cognition. So the capacity of the senses to perceive their objects comes from the deeper power of buddhi sattva. So because their range is limited. See, these eyes can see only so far, no matter how well they are working, or the ears. So buddhi sattva has a deeper power. So because the range is limited, the senses have a limited capacity to contain and exercise this power. So yogis, they say, hey, I know ultimately I'm limitless. And I want to use that particular tool in me, which is closer to that. Because I need to use it. It's almost like a tool. Electricians or a mechanic, they use the tools, proper tools to do the proper job. Over here, Yogi says, I want to use this subtlest tool because this job is so subtle. Because he wants to cross the barriers. Jyotishmati can travel and illuminate any object of any size or shape. The notions of time and space familiar to our ordinary mind and senses do not apply to the light of Jyotishmati. Remember that. It can comprehend an object size of an atom or a mighty star. It can comprehend an object of any size on the other side of a mountain or on the other side of the earth. Simply put, the extraordinary power described in this sutra depends solely on how firmly we can establish in the experience of Vishok and Jyotishmati. That is the bottom line. Now, in the next verse, he's telling us that the yogis who have used this, the subtle power, or who are using it now also, they could get the knowledge of the solar system without going there. Bhuvan Jnanam soorye sanyamat. Bhuvan means solar system. Jnanam means knowledge. Soorye, on the sun. Sanyamat, by performing sanyam. Knowledge of the solar system is gained by performing sanyam on the sun. Knowledge of the solar system has three parts. It could mean the structure of the solar system, which is a unit in the cosmos. It is also the arrangement of the stars, which are called galaxies. It also means the law which governs the movements of planets and stars. Everything is moving at a certain speed around something else. Everything. And we know that now, because we have the instruments to check it. But these yogis, they checked it with these vibhutis. Sitting over here in samadhi, by doing sanyam on that certain object, they checked it out. And now when we check with our instruments, it's so exact. It's mind-boggling, actually. How did they know? But when we study the philosophy like this, then we know that, yeah, it's written, you can do it. And even now we can find it out too. But we have to do the sadhana. So the knowledge can be gained by practicing Samyama on the sun. There is a one sun out there in our solar system. But there's a sun in our body also. So whenever the yogis they talk about, they don't talk about the outer world, they're talking about the inner world also. The Sahasrara chakra, the topmost chakra is called sun, philosophically. There's a lot of light coming out of it. Sahasra means 1,000. So thousands of rays are coming, just like we can say that sun in the sky, thousands of rays. And thousands, when we say, that doesn't mean 1,000 or 5,000. Thousands. The same thing over here too. Inside us. Because we know that the sun may mean various things. Some people even think that sun means the soorye nadi in our body. Or it could be the sushumna, the main nadi, the middle nadi, which goes all the way up to the Sahasrara chakra. That could be the sun too. Different rishis, they talked about it differently. And then the physical sun, of course. So in the ancient times, the modern techniques of astronomy were not available. So through these calculations, they calculated all this so correctly, whether inside or outside. Even today, we don't have any instrument to detect the nadis. Just like we say, Ida Pingla Sushumna, or countless nadis all over the body. There's no instrument available today to check it. But that doesn't mean these nadis are not there. We know that the Pran Shakti is flowing in our entire body. If we detach from the outer world, go within ourselves, we can feel that Pran Shakti, which is different than the inhalation exhalation. There is a manthan going on inside us constantly. It's keep on vibrating. So these yogis, they could arrive at their astonishing discoveries. How? They could either develop their mind through Samyama, or they developed some apparatus like telescope. But we know that no matter what they used, their calculations are correct. Because we are not familiar with any apparatus they used. So we must believe that they knew the universe through practicing Samyama on the sun, whether it's the outer sun or the inner sun. When you try to perform Samyama on the physical sun or on the mental image of the sun, then gradually in the deepest state of concentration, which is called ekagrata, you are able to locate the microcosmic sun within you. When you are able to do this, then certainly you will know everything about the structure and the arrangement of the universe, as well as the laws underlying the structures. And this is what he's telling us in this verse, that knowledge of the solar system is gained by performing Samyama on the sun. Patanjali is not prescribing that we should just look at the sun. No, he's not saying that. Because we know that with our eyes, we should not look at the sun. So that means closing the eyes and doing the Samyama on the sun. And again, I would really deduce from this that he's referring to the internal sun more for a yoga students. Because let the scientists take care of, find out the outer sun and what's happening. We are more interested what's happening inside us. And this the region known as the Mooladhara chakra, taking our attention from here all the way up towards the Sahasrara chakra in the meditation. And they also talk about the Talu chakra. See, we are familiar with the Shat chakra and the seventh one, Sahasrara chakra, but there are a lot of other chakra also in our body. There's a Talu chakra also. They say that is the doorway to the sun. So that's why it's recommended to just stick your tongue up towards the palate as much as you can. That will help you to concentrate better. So there's so many different techniques, whichever technique works for you, but ultimately we got to learn how to do the sadhana. And the quest is to explore the limitless expanse of our own consciousness. And it really begins. See, normally we use the word, God, make my mind antarmukhi. Take it inside. This is what we are saying at that time. Because normally it's a bahirmukhi. We want to know what's going on in this world. Or we would like to know what's going on in somebody else's mind. Yogis, they say, pay more attention to your own mind. Explore the limitless expanse of consciousness, which begins only, I would stress, only after we are no longer concerned with this outer world. We got to learn how to detach from this. We become too obsessed with this outer world. This outer world is not going to go with us. No matter how beautiful it is, or no matter how tempting it is for us. The yogis, they keep on saying that, hey, bring your mind inward, at least a few hours a day. But if you cannot do it hours at a time, few minutes, several times a day, 10% of the time should be spent going inward. And I'm not talking about sleeping. Mind is not inward at that time. Mind is dreaming. Dreaming about the events which happened all day long, or last week or last month. I'm talking about a wakeful time, bringing the mind inward. We got to learn how to rise up. Otherwise, we keep on descending from the lower levels constantly. So the yogi engaged in the sadhana, referred to this sutra, goes from the lower levels to the upper levels where the inner sun is. See, just like a Mooladhara chakra, Swadhisthana chakra, Manipur chakra, Anahat chakra, Vishuddha chakra, Agya chakra, then Sahasrara chakra. That is a sun, inner sun, which is so brilliant. And that sun, there's never any eclipse on it. It's always shining. And it is with all of us. So in the next verse he's telling us that, hey, you can do Samyama and somewhere else also if you are interested in finding the moon also. Or if you want to know the stars also. And again, it could be outer or it could be inner. Let's look at how he has written this verse number 28. Chandre taravyoohajnanam. Very simple verse. Chandre. Chandre means moon. Tara means stars. View means arrangements. Jnanam means knowledge. So knowledge of the stars. So by performing Samyam on the moon, knowledge about the position of the stars is gained. So again, Samyam on the inner moon. And where is the inner moon? The yogis, they say, right in the middle of the Sahasrara chakra. See, outer light, they say it's a sun, but the center over there is the moon. Samyam on the inner moon, the knowledge of the 14 tiers of existence can be known. So inner moon, acquiring knowledge of the arrangement of the inner stars also. The stars are, see, we have the chakras we are familiar with. Then there are maram sathans in our body. See, chakras are the most significant junctions of the Pran Shakti. But there is a crisscrossing of the pranic currents all over our body. And they can be compared with massive self-luminous stars. They are highly concentrated energy fields in our body. They have very unique properties, characteristics also. This whole body is like our own personal universe actually, which we, ordinary person, does not pay much attention to it. It's a very powerful system. God has given it to us. So these maram sathans are relatively less significant junctions of Pran Shakti. Maram sthans. Maybe one of these days in our Wednesday class, I'll talk more about it. But today, just remember that the main Shat chakra, then there are maram sathans. And there are millions of simple junctions also, which are called sandhis. These sandhis are less significant pranic currents cross also. So the human body is governed, guided, and energetically sustained by these chakras, maram sthans and sandhis. Just remember these names right now, and then later on, because we have never gone through these maram sthans and the sandhis. But if you're interested, we can talk about that also. This is called this whole arrangement is called view. And that's what he's talking about. He says this whole arrangement in your entire body, you can find out through Samyam. So the practice of Samyam on the moon matures into this samapati. You remember in the first chapter, samapati word? So that is like a mental absorption into the moon. And during the state of absorption, the mind becomes saturated. Because normally our mind is saturated with the fear or the worries or the stress or the jealousies, completely filled with Maya. Over here, when we do this kind of a super absorption, it becomes saturated with the inherent qualities of the attributes of the moon. And there's a pranic current. Through this pranic current, our mind receives nourishment and guidance. Why a yogi's mind is always calm? Why a yogi's mind is always peaceful? Why a yogi can answer the questions? The knowledge is all inside. A yogi's mind is connected with the moon and the sun, inner moon and sun. The yogi is able to mentally travel to every nook and cranny of the body. Sure, outer universe also, but the yogi is more interested in the inner universe. In the process, yogi passes through the entire network of stars. I'm talking about these marmsthans. During this journey, a yogi can stop and practice sanyam on any star. You have heard about the healers? People go to the healers to heal their body. Or people go to the therapist to solve their mental issues. But yogis, they say, you have the power to do it yourself also. But you have to rise above all these afflictions first. You can move on to the stars, practice sanyam there. This way, a yogi can eventually gain knowledge of all. And the step beyond simply knowing the stars is the subject of the next sutra also. So beyond the stars, dhruve tat gati jnanam. Dhruve, by performing sanyam on the pole star, dhruv, tat means that, gati means movement, jnana means knowledge. So that means knowledge of their movements. So by performing sanyam on the pole star, dhruv tara, knowledge of the movement of the stars can be obtained. If you want to know about the absolute and the relative movement, you have to do sanyam on the pole star. Our ancient rishis, the yogis, they knew a lot of things very accurately. About the stars, not only the stars, about the heavenly bodies also. They must have done a lot of sanyam. In our epic literature, you all know that Dhruv refers to that young prince who committed himself to an extremely intense meditation. He was a young boy, went into the jungles, meditated. As the story goes, the meditation led him to conquer hunger and thirst. Finally, his breath, more accurately, actually, pranic pulsations, reached a state of absolute stillness. In this state, he found himself totally immersed in all-pervading consciousness. And as he began to descend from this immersive state, he became cognizant of the entire universe. He knew the minute atoms. He also knew the intricate network of constellations and galaxies. That was a Sabij Samadhi. In that Sabij Samadhi, he saw how his own body, mind, and senses are pervaded and permeated by consciousness. How consciousness breathes life into matter. How the Pran Shakti executes all physical, mental, sensory, and spiritual activities. That young boy, he was not even 8 yet, less than 8 years old. That kind of a determination. So in the light of this story, the term Dhruv came to represent the epitome of determination, stability, and perfection. Dhruv is a symbol of reality characterized by the principle of constancy. It is a state of unmoving, yet it is the center of all that moves. And that's why we look at that pole star. We think it's not moving and everything else moves, and we calculate other things based on that. But in the context of Yog Sadhana, Dhruv is above the sun and the moon, they are saying. That's what Patanjali is saying. And what is that in our body? It is the immutable space of consciousness located where this Hasar ends. That is the point. That's where the space above the highest peak of the Mount Sumeru, they say. It doesn't have a physical correlation with our body. It's above that. But it's always there. So we'll talk a little bit more about it next week. Let's just end today's class here, and we'll start with this verse number 29. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaye Purnameva Visheshyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you very much.